She's nothing but a free maid. No more, no less. The voice, my husband's voice, echoed down from upstairs just as I struggled to close the front door. I froze in the entryway, my hands aching from the plastic shopping bag handles digging deep into my skin. The bundle of vegetables, fresh milk, and meat for his dinner suddenly felt as heavy as lead. I set the heavy bags down on the floor, starting to tiptoe up the stairs, intending to put the groceries away later. But then the voice rang out again, clearer this time. It was Nathan. He was on the phone. My heart began to pound erratically. For 4 years, I'd climbed these stairs 100 times, carrying meals, medicine, and the hope of his recovery. But when I reached the threshold of the bedroom, the sight waiting for me nearly made my knees give out. Nathan was standing, not leaning, not struggling. He was standing straight and tall beside the bed, one foot even swinging with a decisive rhythm, while the other supported his entire body, a thing that, for us, for all these years, only existed in dreams. His eyes were narrowed, his mouth curved in a joyful smile at something the person on the other end of the line was saying. It was a smile I hadn't received in 5 years, but I knew that kind of smile. He used to smile like that when he was flirting with me. "Don't worry, my love," he continued, his back still turned to me, his voice filled with delight. "She doesn't know anything. Just be patient a little longer. I'll handle this smoothly, and then we'll be together forever." The other person on the line kept talking. Nathan chuckled softly, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "I can never forget the curves of your body." It was like a massive bell striking right next to my ear. My head buzzed, the world tilted. I brought my hands to my mouth, ignoring the weight of the grocery bags. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My husband of 8 years, the man I had sacrificed my career, my dreams, my whole life for, had been lying to me. I went back to the kitchen. I swung my hand, flinging the grocery bags across the floor, everything spilling out. Nathan never liked me to make a mess, always demanding I follow his strict rules. But not anymore. Enough was enough. Now, I would give him back everything. "Olivia, the physical therapy appointment is at 2. Don't be late." Nathan's voice cut through the morning air as I stood at the kitchen counter preparing his breakfast. The same routine, the same tone, the same reminder that nothing I did was ever good enough. "I know," I said, my voice unnervingly casual, arranging his pills next to the plate. I wrote it down. "And remember to ask about new exercises, the ones for spinal cord recovery." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me from his spot in the living room. 4 years of this. 4 years of lifting him, caring for him, hoping for him. My back ached from hoisting him in and out of his wheelchair. My hands were chapped from washing his clothes, cleaning up his messes, managing his life. The person I once was seemed to be just a ghost. Olivia Hayes, marketing director. Olivia Hayes, the one who dreamed of traveling the world. Olivia Hayes, the one who used to laugh until her stomach hurt. That woman died the day Nathan's car hit black ice and wrapped around a tree. "Don't just stand there," he called. "Bring it over here." I carried his breakfast to the living room, setting the tray on the table beside his wheelchair. He didn't look at me, never looked at me anymore, just stared at the television, chewing mechanically. "Your mother called," I said. "She wants to visit this weekend." Nathan's jaw tightened. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd ask you first." "Good. Tell her it's fine and make sure the house is spotless. You know how she is." I knew exactly how Kendra Vance was. She would sweep through our house like a storm, pointing out every speck of dust, every wrinkle in the curtains, every way I was failing her son. Then she'd pull me aside for one of her talks. "Nathan needs you, Olivia. He's been through so much. You can't abandon him now. A good wife wouldn't do that, would she? A good wife or a free maid," I thought, but I never said it aloud. "I'll take care of it," I said instead. Nathan finally looked at me. His eyes, once warm and loving, held nothing but contempt now. "You'd better." "And Olivia?" "Yes?" "Wear something decent when she's here. I'm not having you look like some lowly servant in my house." The words landed like a slap. I glanced down at my worn jeans and faded t-shirt. When was the last time I'd bought new clothes? When was the last time I looked in the mirror and cared about what I saw? "I'll find something nice," I whispered, holding back the nausea and disgust rising in my throat. He turned back to the television. Dismissed, as always. I retreated to the kitchen and gripped the counter until my knuckles were white. The woman in the window's reflection looked empty. Tired, defeated, but not dead. My phone vibrated. A text from Maya, my childhood best friend, and the only person who still remembered the person I used to be. Coffee later? It's so hard to get a hold of you lately. Are you okay? I typed a quick reply before I could change my mind, just enough for Maya to understand. Yeah, I need to get out of here. The coffee shop felt like a different world. People were laughing and talking about normal things. Work deadlines, weekend plans, movies they'd seen. I sat across from Maya, my hands wrapped around a coffee that had been cold for 20 minutes. Liv, you look exhausted, Maya said, her eyes wide with worry. When was the last time you did something for yourself? Olivia, the most fashionable girl back then, has disappeared. I tried to remember. I don't know. It's hard to leave him alone for long. What about a respite care service or asking Mrs. Kendra to help? A bitter laugh escaped me. She helps by telling me everything I'm doing wrong. And respite care costs money we don't have. Nathan now had full control of our finances. Every penny was accounted for. Every expense questioned. I was given an allowance for groceries and household supplies. Everything else required his permission. This isn't healthy, Olivia, for either of you. He needs me. The words came out automatically, programmed by years of Kendra's guilt trips. What about what you need? The question hung in the air. When had I stopped thinking about what I needed? I made a vow, Maya, in sickness and in health. Vows go both ways. Is he honoring his commitment to love and cherish you? I thought about the conversation this morning, the constant criticism, the way he looked at me as if I were nothing more than a nuisance. He's struggling, I said weakly. He's lost so much. Maya reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. You've lost a lot too. Your career, your dreams, yourself. That matters. My eyes welled up with tears. I blinked them back quickly. Crying was a luxury I couldn't afford. Nathan hated it when I cried. I should go, I said, checking my watch. He'll need his afternoon meds soon. Olivia, wait. Maya squeezed my hand. Promise me one thing. If things get worse, if you need help, you'll call me. Day or night. I nodded, even though we both knew I wouldn't. I'd been drowning for so long, I'd forgotten how to reach for a lifeline. But as I drove home, Maya's words echoed in my mind. What about what you need? I was still thinking about that when I turned into the driveway and saw Kendra's car already parked there. She was early, of course. Through the living room window, I could see her animated gestures as she talked to Nathan. Her hands flew through the air, her mouth moving quickly. Nathan was nodding along, occasionally glancing toward the door. They were talking about me. I could feel it. I sat in the car for another minute, gathering my strength. Then, I grabbed my purse and went inside, putting on the smile I had perfected over 4 years of practice. Kendra, you're here early. What a pleasant surprise. Nathan's mother turned toward me, her sharp eyes assessing. Olivia, my dear, you look tired. Are you taking care of yourself? The question sounded concerned, but I heard the subtext. Are you taking care of my son properly? I'm fine, I said. Just busy with Nathan's appointments and therapy. Of course. Such a dedicated wife. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Nathan was just telling me how much he appreciates everything you do. I looked at Nathan. He was staring at the television, his jaw set in his familiar expression of annoyance. I'll get you some tea? I offered. That would be lovely. And Olivia, we need to talk about Nathan's long-term care plan. My stomach clenched. Long-term care plan? It sounded ominous. In the kitchen, I fumbled with the kettle, my hands shaking slightly. Through the thin walls, I could hear Kendra and Nathan talking in low tones. I caught snippets. Not sustainable. Other options. What's best for him? The kettle shrieked, sharp and urgent. I poured the tea with mechanical precision, my mind reeling. What were they planning? When I returned with the tea tray, Kendra had moved to the chair next to Nathan's wheelchair. They looked like conspirators. Sit down, my dear, Kendra said, patting the sofa across from them. I sat on the edge of the cushion, every muscle tense. Olivia, Kendra began. We've been thinking about Nathan's future. His needs are only going to increase over time. His needs are fine, I said quickly. I can handle it. Of course you can, my dear. But should you have to? You're still so young. You could remarry, have children, build a new life. The words landed like ice. I don't want a new life. I want this one. With Nathan. Nathan finally looked at me, and for a split second, I thought I saw something flash in his eyes. Guilt. Regret. But it was gone so quickly, I could have imagined it. There are wonderful care facilities, Kendra continued. Places where Nathan would get professional help around the clock. Facilities? My voice broke. You want to put him in a home? I want what's best for my son, Kendra said sharply. And right now, that might not be struggling at home with limited resources. Limited wife. Limited everything. We're managing just fine, I insisted. Kendra's smile was condescending. Are you, dear? Nathan says you've been crying a lot lately. That you seem overwhelmed. I stared at Nathan. When had he seen me cry? I always waited until I was alone. Usually in the shower, where the water could hide my tears. I'm not overwhelmed, I said. Of course you're not, Kendra soothed. But think about it, Olivia. Really think. Would Nathan be happier with professional care? Would you be happier with the freedom to rebuild your life? The conversation continued for another hour, but I barely heard it. All I could think about was Nathan watching me, cataloging my moments of weakness, reporting back to his mother as if I were a poor employee. After Kendra left, the house settled into a heavy silence. Nathan had retreated to his bedroom for a nap. I stood in the kitchen, mechanically washing the teacups, my mind spinning. You could remarry, have children, build a new life. The words should have felt like an escape. Instead, they felt like a betrayal of my vows, of the love we once had, of the man Nathan used to be before the accident took pieces of both of us. I dried the last cup and put it away. Tomorrow, I would call about respite care options. Maybe if I could have a few free hours a week, I could think more clearly. Maybe I could remember who Olivia Hayes used to be. But tonight, I would make Nathan's favorite dinner and pretend Kendra's words hadn't cut so deep. I would be the dedicated wife, even if it was slowly killing me, even if sometimes I wondered if that was exactly what they wanted. The house felt different that Thursday afternoon, quieter than usual. Nathan had been particularly pleasant at lunch, almost talkative. He'd even thanked me for the sandwich, which hadn't happened in months. I should have been glad for the change. Instead, it made me uneasy. I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard voices. At first, I thought the television was too loud. Nathan often cranked up the volume on his afternoon shows. But as I climbed the stairs with his clean clothes, the voices grew clearer, and one of them was definitely Nathan's. I froze on the landing. Nathan was talking to someone, not the television. This was a conversation, but how could that be? His phone was downstairs on the kitchen counter. I'd seen it there when I brought him his lunch. Don't worry about it, Nathan was saying, his voice muffled through the closed bedroom door. She has no idea. My heart skipped a beat. Who was he talking to? I tiptoed closer to the door, the laundry basket trembling in my hands. 4 years of playing the helpless cripple, Nathan continued, and there was amusement in his voice. Real, genuine amusement. You should see her running around like a scared little mouse, doing everything I tell her. She's nothing but a free maid. No more, no less. A free maid? The basket slipped from my numb fingers. The clean clothes scattered across the hallway floor, but I barely noticed. My entire world had narrowed to the voice behind that door. The lawyer said, "Another 4 years and we'll have everything locked down," Nathan continued. "The abandonment clause is in my favor. If I can prove she can't handle my care, that she's unstable, I get to keep the house, the accounts, everything. And you know what the best part is?" I pressed my ear to the door, my pulse pounding. She actually believes I can't walk. My God, you should see the look on her face when she helps me into bed at night. All that guilt and pity. It's almost too easy. The words hit me like punches. Can't walk. Almost too easy. I know. Nathan said, his voice softer now. 2 more months and you can move in. We just have to be patient a little longer. Let her dig her own grave. There was a pause. Then Nathan laughed. A real, genuine laugh. And the sound of it made my stomach clench. Trust me, my love. By the time I'm done with her, Olivia won't know what hit her. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, ending up in a heap among the scattered clothes. 4 years. 4 years of sacrificing everything. And it was all a lie. I put my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. Nathan was talking again, but the words sounded distant, as if I were hearing them through water. Something about timelines and legal procedures and making sure I looked unstable. She's nothing but a free maid, the phrase repeated in my head. A free maid. 4 years of my life. And that was all I meant to him. I don't know how long I sat there. Finally, Nathan's voice stopped. I heard a noise from inside the room. Footsteps. Real footsteps. Panic shot through me. I scrambled to gather the clothes, stuffing them back into the basket with trembling hands. By the time I heard the doorknob turn, I was on my feet, trying to look normal. The door opened. Nathan emerged in his wheelchair, looking perfectly serene. Olivia, what are you doing up here? His voice was back to its familiar, weary, slightly irritated tone. The voice of a man who couldn't use his legs. Bringing up your laundry, I managed to say. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. He looked at my face. You look pale. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just tired. Maybe you should rest. I can manage for a while. The irony was so sharp it almost cut me. He could manage. He could manage perfectly well. I'll put these away, I said, gesturing to the basket. Leave it for later. Go rest. Doctor's orders. He smiled. That smile. The one that used to make my heart flutter when we were dating. Now, it looked like a mask. I nodded and walked toward the living room, where I had been sleeping for the past year. Nathan had convinced me it was better that way. Less likely to disturb his sleep. Easier for me to hear if he needed help during the night. Another lie. I closed the living room door and sat down on the bed. My hands were still shaking. My mind replayed Nathan's words over and over, each one a fresh wound. She has no idea, just a free maid. She actually believes I can't walk. How long had this been going on? Had he been faking it from the beginning? Was the accident even real? I thought back to the early days in the hospital. The doctors explaining his injuries, the prognosis, the long road ahead. They had seemed genuine. The X-rays, the MRIs, the consultations with specialists. But memories could be manipulated. Medical records could be faked. Especially if someone had the right connections, the right motive. My phone was in my pocket. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and texted Maya. Can you come over? Emergency. Her reply was immediate. On my way. I stared at the ceiling and tried to process the magnitude of what I had uncovered. My husband wasn't a quadriplegic. He was planning to divorce me and take everything. And there was someone else. Chloe. It had to be Chloe Bishop, the physical therapist who had worked with Nathan in the early days. She had been so attentive, so concerned. I had actually been grateful for her dedication. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. The phone calls that came when I was out running errands. Nathan's moods would improve after certain appointments. The mysterious improvement in his attitude on days Chloe was scheduled to visit. She had stopped coming about a year ago. Nathan had said he had progressed as much as he could with her methods. But what if she had never actually stopped coming? What if they had just gotten better at hiding it? A noise from downstairs interrupted my thoughts. The front door opening and closing. Nathan called, Olivia, Maya's here. I heard their voices in the living room. Maya's bright greeting, Nathan's charming response. He was always good with my friends. They all thought he was a devoted husband, bearing his disability with grace and humor. If they only knew. I splashed cold water on my face and went downstairs. Maya was sitting on the edge of the sofa, her purse clutched in her lap. She took one look at me and her face changed. Liv, what happened? Nathan was watching us both, his expression carefully controlled. She's not feeling well, he said. I told her to rest, but you know how she is. Always pushing herself too hard. The concern in his voice was perfect. If I hadn't heard what I had heard upstairs, I would have completely believed it. Maybe a little fresh air would help, Maya suggested. We could take a walk around the block. That's a great idea, Nathan said. I'll be fine here. Take your time. He wanted us to go. Of course he did. There was probably another call to make. Let me get my coat, I said. Outside, Maya waited until we were well away from the house before stopping and grabbing my arm. Olivia, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. I looked back at our house, the one I had called home for 8 years, the one where I had sacrificed my dreams to care for a man who saw me as nothing more than a maid. I need to tell you something, I said, but you have to promise me you won't think I'm losing my mind. Maya squeezed my hand. I promise. So, I told her everything. The conversation I had overheard. The implications. The betrayal that ran deeper than I had ever imagined. When I finished, Maya was silent for a long moment. Then, she said the words I needed to hear. We're going to destroy him. Maya's living room had been transformed into a command center. Folders were spread across her coffee table. A laptop open beside stacks of printouts. 2 cell phones charging on the end table. In 3 weeks, we had built a case against my husband that would leave him with nothing. The private investigator's report is in, Maya said, sliding a yellow folder across to me. You're not going to like it. I opened the folder and instantly understood her warning. Photos fell out. Nathan and Chloe at a restaurant, at a motel, walking hand in hand through a park. In every picture, Nathan was standing straight, moving normally, not at all like a man who had been a quadriplegic for 4 years. How long? I asked. Based on the dates, at least 18 months, but Tony thinks it goes back even further. The motel staff remembered them from 2 years ago. 2 years. While I was giving up my sleep to care for him, massaging his legs, helping him with the most basic daily tasks, he was meeting another woman in cheap motels. There's more, Maya continued. She opened her laptop and brought up a bank statement. Remember you said he controlled all the finances? I nodded. Nathan had convinced me it was easier that way. One person managed everything. Less room for error. He's been moving money, Olivia. Large quantities frequently. Look at this. The screen showed wire transfers I had never seen before. Money going from our joint accounts to accounts I didn't recognize. Tens of thousands of dollars moved over the course of 3 years. Where is it going? Offshore accounts, Swiss banks, places that would be very difficult for you to get to in a divorce. My stomach clenched. He's been planning this for years. It gets worse. Maya brought up another document. I had a friend check his medical records from the accident. The records from his follow-up appointments don't match what his doctors originally recommended. What do you mean? His neurologist suggested he continue with physical therapy and try some experimental treatments. But according to his insurance records, Nathan declined most of them. He specifically requested to be classified as permanently disabled. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture so ugly I could barely look at it. He planned this from the beginning, I whispered. It looks that way. The question now is, what do we do with it? I stared at the photos scattered on the table. Nathan smiling, his arm around Chloe. Nathan walking confidently through a parking lot. Nathan being the man I had fallen in love with, just not with me. I want him to lose everything, I said quietly. That's the spirit, but we have to be smart about this. One wrong move and he could disappear with all that money. Maya was right. Nathan was clearly intelligent, manipulative, and had been planning this for years. But he had one weakness, his arrogance. He thought I was completely clueless, nothing more than a free maid who would never fight back. It was time to prove him wrong. What's the plan? I asked. Maya smiled. It wasn't a pretty smile. First, we document everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every penny he's stolen. Then, we wait for the perfect moment to spring the trap. How will we know when that is? Trust me, men like Nathan always get too greedy. They get cocky, they get careless. When he does, we'll be ready. Over the next hour, we finalized our strategy. Maya had connections. A lawyer, an investigator, people who knew how to handle men like Nathan. I would continue to play the role of the devoted wife while secretly gathering evidence. The hardest part was going home and pretending nothing had changed. Nathan was in the living room when I walked in, doing his evening exercises, the ones designed to maintain muscle tone in his supposedly useless legs. "How was your visit with Maya?" he asked without looking up. "It was fine. We just talked." "Good. You need to have friends. It's important to maintain relationships outside of caregiving." The way he said it so casually sent a shiver down my spine, as if he genuinely cared about my well-being, as if he wasn't the reason I had isolated myself from everyone I'd ever known. "Nathan," I said carefully, "I've been thinking about what your mother said, about the care facilities." He stopped his exercises and looked at me. "What about them? Maybe she's right. Maybe you'd be happier in a place with professional staff." His eyes hardened for a split second before the mask of the concerned husband slid back into place. "Olivia, we talked about this. I want to be here with you. We're a team. I know, but I worry I'm not giving you the best care. Someone with professional training could. I don't want anyone else taking care of me, because no one else would do it for free while he stole their life savings." "Okay," I said softly. "I just want what's best for you. I know you do." He reached out and took my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "That's why I love you so much." The words should have melted my heart. Instead, they felt like poison. That night, I lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Down the hall, I could hear Nathan talking quietly on the phone, probably to Chloe, planning their future together, while I played nursemaid to a man who could walk perfectly fine, but not for much longer. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos Maya had taken of the evidence we had gathered. Bank statements, medical records, the PI report. Nathan thought he was so clever, but he had left a trail a mile long. His biggest mistake was underestimating me. For 4 years, he had trained me to be invisible, to anticipate his needs, to move through the house like a ghost. He had no idea that I had been watching him just as carefully as he had been manipulating me. Tomorrow, I would begin the final phase of our plan, the part where Nathan Vance learned that even free maids eventually demand payment for their services, and the bill was about to come due. "I was thinking we should have a party," I announced at breakfast. Nathan looked up from his plate of eggs, his fork halfway to his mouth. "A party?" "For our anniversary. It's been 4 years since the accident. 4 years of getting through this together." The words tasted bitter, but I kept my voice light. "I thought it would be nice to celebrate how far we've come." Nathan slowly put his fork down. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out my angle. "You know I don't like being around a lot of people. It's embarrassing to be in this chair." The perfect response. Exactly what I had expected. "It won't be a lot of people. Just our close friends. Maya, maybe a few others. Your mother, of course. People who care about us." "I don't know. Please, Nathan. I've been feeling so alone lately. It would mean a lot to me." I let my voice break a little on the last words. Nathan's expression softened, not because he cared about my feelings, but because a sad, lonely wife fit perfectly into the narrative of my mental instability. "Fine," he finally said. "If it's that important to you, but keep it small." "Of course. Maybe Saturday afternoon? I can make all your favorite dishes." "Sounds good." He smiled at me, and for a moment, I remembered why I had fallen in love with him. Before the lies, before the manipulation, before he turned me into someone I barely recognized. That memory hurt more than his betrayal. After breakfast, I called Maya. "It's on," I said simply. "Saturday. Saturday. I'll make the calls. Everyone will be there." Everyone included the private investigator, the divorce lawyer, Kendra Vance, and 3 of our closest friends who had watched me sacrifice everything for my disabled husband and thought I was a saint. They were about to learn the truth. The week passed in a blur of preparations. I cleaned the house obsessively, cooked Nathan's favorite foods, arranged flowers. To anyone watching, I looked like a devoted wife planning a celebration of her marriage's survival through hardship. Nathan grew more relaxed as the week went on. I overheard him on the phone multiple times, his voice low and intimate. Once I heard him laugh and say, "Just a couple more months, my love, and then we'll be free." Free. The word stung in my chest, but not for the reason Nathan thought. Saturday morning arrived, gray and drizzling. The perfect weather for what was about to unfold. I was in the kitchen, putting the finishing touches on the food when I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Kendra getting out of her sedan, pulling a covered dish from the back seat. "Your mother's here," I called to Nathan. "Great. Can you help me get positioned in the living room? I want to be in the chair by the window." I helped him transfer from his wheelchair to the living room chair, a process that required me to take most of his weight while he made pained sounds and clutched my shoulder. His performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I would have believed he was genuinely struggling. Kendra swept in with her usual energy, kissing Nathan's cheek and giving me a sharp-eyed look. "Olivia, you look tired. Are you taking your vitamins?" "I'm fine, Kendra. Thanks for coming." "Of course. Though, I must say I'm surprised you would want to celebrate this day." She gestured vaguely at Nathan's legs, as if his disability was something too delicate to be named directly. "It's important to acknowledge what we've been through," I said. "How we've grown." More guests arrived over the next hour. Maya came with the divorce lawyer, introduced as her friend Isabel. The private investigator arrived as a neighbor dropping by with a casserole. Our friends, Ben and Sarah, brought wine and sympathetic smiles. Nathan held court from his chair, telling stories about his recovery, praising my dedication as his caregiver. He was charming, graceful, inspiring. Our guests hung on his every word. "Olivia has been amazing," he said, reaching out to take my hand. "I don't know what I'd do without her." Sarah dabbed at her eyes. "You two are such an inspiration. The way you faced this challenge together." "Olivia has sacrificed so much," Kendra added. "Her career, her social life, everything for Nathan." "I haven't sacrificed a thing," I said softly. "I'm just doing what any wife would do." Nathan squeezed my hand. "See, this is why I love her so much." The words twisted in my stomach, but I smiled and squeezed back. Around 3 o'clock, I excused myself to check on the food in the kitchen. Maya followed me. "How are you doing?" she whispered. "I feel sick," I admitted, listening to him lie to everyone's faces. "It's almost over. Just a little longer." "Are you sure the timing is right?" Tony confirmed it this morning. "Chloe is due to arrive at 4:30. She thinks Nathan will be alone. He told her you were going away to your sister's for the weekend." My sister lived 3 states away. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. "And the recording device is in place. Everything will be on record." I nodded and took a deep breath. 1 more hour of playing the devoted wife. Then, Nathan would learn what it felt like to have your entire world crumble in front of the people you care about. We went back to the living room, where Nathan was telling Ben about his most recent physical therapy session. A complete fabrication, as he had stopped going months ago. "Slow progress," Nathan was saying, "but the doctors say there's still hope. Olivia never gives up on me." I felt everyone's eyes on me, warm with admiration for my devotion. If they only knew. At 4:20, I stood up and stretched. I should get a head start on cleaning up the kitchen. "Let me help," Sarah offered. "No, please. Stay and visit with Nathan. It will only take me a few minutes." I went into the kitchen and waited. Through the window, I could see a silver sedan turning into the driveway. "Chloe, right on time." My heart pounded as I heard her key in the front door, a key Nathan had clearly given her. There was a moment of silence from the living room. Then Nathan's voice, loud and panicked. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" "You said Olivia was gone for the weekend," her voice replied, confused. "What are all these cars? Oh my God." I stepped back into the living room just as Chloe appeared in the doorway. She was beautiful, tall, blonde, self-assured. Everything I had been before 4 years of being Nathan's free maid had worn me down. She froze when she saw the room full of people. Nathan was in his chair, his face white. "I'm so sorry," Chloe stammered. "I didn't know you had company. I should go." "Wait," I said calmly. "Don't leave on our account." I turned to Nathan. "Nathan, aren't you going to introduce us to your friend?" Everyone was staring. Kendra looked confused. Our friends were exchanging glances. Maya sat perfectly still, her phone in her lap, recording everything. "This is Chloe," Nathan said, his voice strained. My former physical therapist." "Former physical therapist?" Chloe corrected him quickly. I was just stopping by to return some old equipment. What kind of equipment? I asked pleasantly. Equipment. For... She was fumbling. Interesting. It's so interesting that you have a key to our house, I continued, for a former physical therapist. The room was now completely silent. Everyone could feel the tension, but they didn't understand it yet. Nathan was gripping the arms of his chair. Olivia, maybe we should discuss this in private. Oh, I think our guests will find this a very edifying conversation, I said, especially since we're celebrating your recovery journey. I walked over to Nathan's chair and stood behind it, my hands on the back of the chair like a supportive wife. Tell me, Chloe, I said, in your professional opinion, how would you rate Nathan's progress, specifically his mobility? I'm not sure what you mean. Well, when you worked with him, he was a complete quadriplegic from the waist down, correct? Unable to walk, stand, or bear his own weight. Chloe's eyes darted to Nathan, then back to me. That was the initial diagnosis. Yes. And in your professional opinion, would a man with that level of spinal cord damage ever walk again, even after 4 years? The question hung in the air like a knife. Nathan was breathing in short gasps, his knuckles white on the arms of the chair. Recoveries vary, Chloe said weakly. Sometimes there can be surprising improvements. Surprising improvements? I repeated. Like being able to get up and walk across a room? Maybe even drive to a motel? Kendra gasped. Sarah's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. Olivia, Nathan said, his voice a sharp warning. What are you doing? I'm asking questions, my love. Questions I should have asked 4 years ago. I looked around the room at the shocked faces of our guests. You see, I've made an interesting discovery lately. Would everyone like to hear about it? No one answered, but no one left, either. They were frozen, waiting for the bomb to drop. 3 weeks ago, I was bringing Nathan's laundry upstairs when I heard voices. Nathan's voice, to be specific. He was having a rather animated conversation with someone on the phone. I paused, letting the implications sink in. The interesting thing is, when I got to his bedroom door, I could see him through the crack. Nathan's face had gone gray. Olivia, stop. He was standing, I continued, my voice growing stronger with every word. Not leaning, not struggling. Standing straight up beside the bed, laughing into the phone about his free maid who was too stupid to realize he had been lying for 4 years. The silence was deafening. Kendra's hand was over her mouth. Ben and Sarah stared at Nathan as if they had never seen him before. That's impossible, Kendra whispered. The doctors said. The doctors said a lot of things, I interrupted, but Nathan declined most of the treatments they recommended. He specifically asked to be classified as permanently disabled. I looked down at my husband, who was now pressing himself into the chair as if trying to disappear. Isn't that right, Nathan? You're having a breakdown, Nathan said, but his voice was trembling. The stress of taking care of me. It's been too much. You're imagining things. I laughed, and the sound of it was sharp enough to cut glass. Am I imagining the bank statements that show you've been wiring over $200,000 to offshore accounts? Am I imagining the motel receipts, the restaurant bills, the photos? I nodded at Maya, who stood up and pulled a yellow folder from her purse. She handed it to Kendra. Go ahead, I said. Take a look. Kendra opened the folder with trembling hands. The first photo showed Nathan and Chloe walking hand in hand through a park. Nathan was standing straight, moving normally, smiling. Kendra's face crumpled. Nathan, what is this? Mother, I can explain. Can you? I asked. Can you explain why you've been seeing Chloe for over 2 years? Can you explain why you've been walking around perfectly fine while I've been sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room, afraid to be away from you for more than an hour? More photos were being passed around. Nathan at a restaurant. Nathan getting into a car. Nathan being the man I had fallen in love with. Just not with me. 4 years, I said, my voice cracking, despite my best efforts to keep it steady. 4 years of my life. I gave up my career, my friends, my dreams. I made myself into a ghost because I thought you needed me. Tears were streaming down my cheeks, but I didn't care. Let them see what their precious Nathan had done to me. But you never needed me, did you? You just needed someone stupid enough to take care of you while you planned your escape with your girlfriend. Chloe was backing toward the door, but Ben had moved to block her way. I don't think so, he said quietly. I think you should stay and listen to this. Nathan tried one last time. It's all a misunderstanding. Olivia has been under a lot of stress. Stress? I let out a laugh. And then my voice became eerily quiet. You're right. I've been very stressed. And then I quickly pulled it out. A black pistol, small but deadly, fit snugly in my palm. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Kendra let out a piercing shriek. Ben and Sarah jumped up. Olivia, what are you doing? Maya cried out, her voice filled with panic. I ignored them. I raised the gun, pointing it directly at Nathan, who was frozen in his wheelchair, his face as white as a sheet. Olivia, put the gun down! Ben shouted, trying to move closer. Stay where you are! I snarled, my gaze sweeping across the room. If anyone tries to protect him, I promise they'll be going to heaven with him today. A terrifying silence fell. No one dared to move. To prove my point, I aimed the gun at the ceiling. The gunshot echoed in the confined space, deafening and horrifying. A small piece of plaster showered down onto the floor. Everyone flinched, some screaming in fear. Nathan trembled, his eyes wide as he looked at me like a monster. I slowly lowered the barrel, aiming it directly at the middle of his forehead. If I have to go to hell today, I whispered, my cold voice filling the silence. You're coming with me, Nathan. To pay for every lie, every betrayal, every day you stole from my life. My index finger slowly, so very slowly, rested on the trigger. No, Olivia, don't, Maya screamed, trying to lunge forward. Please, Kendra sobbed. The chaos and tension had been pushed to the limit, faced with imminent death, a dark barrel. And my finger on the trigger, something primal inside, Nathan awoke. Survival instinct overrode 4 years of acting. With a horrified yell, he lunged out of his wheelchair. He stood up and ran. He ran toward the door, knocking over a small table on the way. He took a few steps, then suddenly froze, as if he had run into an invisible wall. He slowly turned back. He saw what I saw, what everyone in the room saw. He was standing, on his own 2 feet. His face contorted from horror to an even more dreadful realization. He was exposed. There was no going back. Everyone had seen him as a perfectly normal person. Amidst the stunned silence, I slowly lowered the gun. A cold, cynical smile spread across my lips. I flipped the gun over, revealing the bright orange tip that marked it as a toy. It's just a fake gun, I said, my voice now frighteningly calm. But it seems it was enough to bring a dead man back to life. What a miracle, isn't it? The room erupted. Kendra was sobbing. Sarah was swearing. Ben was staring at Nathan with disgust. Maya was calmly recording everything on her phone. You bastard, Kendra whispered. You lying, manipulative bastard. What have you done to her? Nathan sank back into the chair. All pretense was finally abandoned. You don't understand, Mother. Olivia and I, we weren't okay. We haven't been happy in years. So you decided to torture her instead of just getting a divorce? Ben's voice was like ice. You turned her into your servant while you stole her money and cheated on her. The marriage was over, Chloe suddenly said, finding her voice. Nathan was trapped. He couldn't leave because Olivia would have taken everything in a divorce. So instead, he took everything first, Maya said, still recording. Very noble. I wiped my eyes and looked around the room at the people who had watched me sacrifice my life for a lie. Some looked horrified. Others looked ashamed that they had never questioned Nathan's story. He's my son. I love him. I love him. But I do not like the man he is, and I will not pretend anymore that what he has done is forgivable. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kendra asked, Do you ever regret it? Exposing him the way you did? I considered the question. You mean, do I regret humiliating him in front of our friends and family? Yes. No, I said with finality. He humiliated himself. I just refused to keep his secret anymore. Kendra nodded. Good. He counted on your kindness, your willingness to protect him, even when he didn't deserve it. I'm glad you finally chose yourself. After she left, I sat in my apartment and thought about choices. For 4 years, I had made choices of trust, of sacrifice. They had seemed like good choices at the time. The choices of a loving wife, a dedicated partner. But they were also the choices of a woman who had been taught that her value came from what she could do for others, not from who she was. Now, I was making different choices. I chose work that fulfilled me, friends who saw me as an equal, a space that reflected my own personality. Small, everyday choices that added up to a life that was truly my own. My phone rang again. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Olivia Hayes Consulting Office, I answered. Miss Hayes, this is Isabel Rossi from the State Attorney General's office. We're investigating a case of elder financial abuse, and your name was brought up as someone who might be able to help us understand the mindset of the victim. Of course. How can I help? The victim is an 84-year-old woman whose grandson convinced her that he was disabled and needed her to manage his finances. She gave him over $300,000 before her neighbors grew suspicious. My heart ached for this woman, another person who had been punished for loving an undeserving man. When can we meet? I asked. After arranging the appointment, I went to the window and looked out over the city of Denver. Somewhere out there was an elderly woman who had been betrayed by her loved one. Somewhere else, there was a man who thought he could take advantage of kindness without consequence. He was wrong. They were all wrong. I had spent 4 years learning to be small, to be invisible, to be whatever other people needed me to be. But I had also learned to be patient, to be observant, to gather information quietly. Nathan had taught me how to be a ghost. He just never realized that ghosts can haunt you. My laptop chimed with a new email. Another woman, another story of betrayal and manipulation, another chance to help someone remember that they deserved better. I cracked my knuckles and began to type. Thank you for reaching out. The first thing you need to know is this. What happened to you is not your fault. The second thing you need to know is that it doesn't have to be the end of your story. Let's talk about how to write a better ending. Outside my window, the sun was shining. Inside my apartment, I was finally fully awake, and I had work to do. The courtroom was packed. In the front row were 3 women who looked nervous but determined. Behind them, family members and friends had come to show their support. In the back, a handful of reporters were covering the case that had come to be known as the disability fraud trial. I sat in the witness area, waiting to be called. Nathan sat at the defendant's table with his lawyer, looking older and smaller than I remembered. Jail had not been kind to him. The prosecution calls Olivia Hayes to the stand, the lawyer announced. I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, and swore to tell the truth. After everything I had been through, it was the easiest promise I had ever made. Miss Hayes, the prosecutor began, you were married to the defendant for 8 years, 4 of which he claimed to be a quadriplegic as a result of a car accident. Can you tell the court how this affected your daily life? I looked out at the courtroom. He had learned from his mistakes with me, but he had also grown careless. Your Honor, I began. For 4 years, I believed I was caring for a disabled man who needed my help to survive. I gave up my career, isolated myself from my friends, and dedicated every waking moment to his care. I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room so I could hear if he needed help at night. I bathed him, dressed him, lifted him in and out of his wheelchair and bed. I did this because I loved him, and because I believed he had no one else. I stopped, looking directly at Nathan. What I didn't know was that he was walking around perfectly fine every time I left the house, that he was seeing another woman, stealing money from our accounts, and planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so he could take everything we had built together. The prosecutor led me through the timeline, the discovery, the investigation, the divorce. Then, we moved on to what happened afterward. After the divorce, did you have any contact with the defendant? No direct contact. But about a year later, I was contacted by Isabel Rossi. I gestured to one of the women in the front row. She had found my name online in articles about marital financial abuse. She was in a relationship with Nathan and had started to suspect he wasn't as disabled as he claimed. What did you tell her? I told her to trust her instincts and document everything. I helped her get in touch with a private investigator and a lawyer. When she was ready to confront him, I made sure she wasn't alone. The prosecutor nodded. I testified for 2 hours, detailing the emotional and financial abuse, the manipulative tactics, the way Nathan preyed on women's compassion and used their love as a weapon against them. During cross-examination, Nathan's lawyer tried to paint me as a bitter ex-wife looking for revenge. I stayed calm, sticking to the facts and the documented evidence. Miss Hayes, the defense attorney said, is it not true that you've built a business on playing the victim? That you're profiting from telling this story? I looked at him steadily. I've built a business on helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal. If that's profiting from my story, then yes, I am proud of that profit. After I left the stand, Isabel Rossi testified. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Outside the courthouse, Isabel hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for helping me see that I wasn't crazy. You were never crazy, I told her. You were just dealing with someone who was very good at making you doubt yourself. A reporter approached with a microphone. Miss Hayes, what would you say to other women who might be in a similar situation? I thought for a moment, then looked straight into the camera. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Find people who believe you. And remember, the person who claims to love you should never make you feel small, confused, or worthless. Love doesn't require you to disappear. That night, I sat in my office, a real office now, with staff and clients, and a waiting list of women who needed help rebuilding their lives. On my desk was a photo from Isabel's wedding. She had married a man who loved her for exactly who she was, who celebrated her strength instead of preying on her kindness. 6 years ago, I had been a ghost in my own life, more invisible and faded every day. I had thought my story was about sacrifice and endurance, about being good enough to deserve love. But that wasn't my story at all. My story was about learning that love shouldn't cost you your soul. It was about discovering that sometimes the people who hurt you teach you exactly who you were meant to become. It was about realizing that the woman who was strong enough to survive 4 years of lies was strong enough to build something beautiful from the ashes. Nathan had called me a free maid, as if that made me worthless. He was wrong about the worth part, but he was right about one thing. I was free, and I was just getting started.